Matthews, Heather Roy with me. Now, coming back home, multiple shootings in Auckland, believed by police to be gang-related, has renewed calls for a special task force of sorts to target gangs. Police responded to 7 shootings last night, 4 of them within an hour, in the suburbs of Otara, Papatoetoe, Flatbush, Papakura, Te Atatu, Henderson and Mount Albert. Superintendent Jill Rogers, who heads the county's Manukau Police, says it's believed that 2 prominent gangs involved killer bees and tribesmen.
The addresses that have been subject to shootings have in the past had previous gang links to them. But one of the really concerning things to us is that not necessarily still currently having links. So we know at least 2 of the addresses have absolutely no links to gang activity at all, which just heightens the concern that we have about this behaviour.
Now, despite National previously backtracking on the idea, leader Christopher Luxon is once again proposing a strike force Raptor type police unit to deal with increasing gang crime. The idea is modelled off a similar unit in New South Wales, which promised to take a zero-tolerance approach to gangs. But did it work? Does it work? Well, let's go to Australia with Dr. Terry Goldsworthy, an associate professor in criminology at Bond University. Dr. Goldsworthy, welcome to the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So you're hearing the issues that we're having here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. So straight to that point, a task force to target gangs. Is Strike Force Raptor in Australia effective?
Look, I think any task force can be effective. It depends on how it's set up, what kind of model they're going to use, and what are the outcomes they're looking for. And by that I'm talking about, there's the strategic goals. We want to stop gang warfare. Then you have operational goals, like how are we going to do it? And then there's the tactical response. What do you actually do on the street? All of those 3 levels are very important in terms of policing. Raptor has been relatively successful in some regard, but if you look at current events in Sydney, it certainly hasn't stopped the gang warfare that yet again has bubbled to the top. So they're not the answer by themselves that they'll fix it. There's a whole range of matters that go around this, and it's things like, are the police being reactive or are they being proactive? If you look in Sydney this week, they conducted a whole range of searches in relation to some crime families that were linked supposedly to the shootings last week. Now, you would have to ask the question, that intel they acted on, was that only coming forward this week, or was that intel that they've had for some time and decided to act on this week? If you're getting intel, it needs to be acted on in a timely fashion, and police in these kind of operations are often coming from a reactive phase, whereas they really should be proactive in trying to target these groups so that you don't fall in the position, as you kind of outlined there, that, you almost have the police a sense of losing control of the streets.
Yeah. So what's happening to the Strike Force Raptor now?
Well, it's still in operation. They've brought in a separate operation down there to target some of the shootings that they've had between the gangland families, etc. Raptor is an ongoing operation against motorcycle gangs primarily, which we seem to have a fixation on in Australia, at least anyway. And I see New Zealand has inherited some of our OMCG members and is now seen as an issue over there. But, it's all about giving police the right tools. And it's interesting, as I was preparing for the lecture, to see that, New Zealand's had some gang laws similar to the ones we've had over here. They've had them since 1998, but only used them on 2 occasions. And those laws I'm talking about are the habitual consorting or associating laws that seem to be the go-to tool that we use in Australia. So you've had them on the books since 1998, and only on 2 occasions have those offences been put in place. But, I don't think those association laws are necessarily the answer. What the answer is having a focus group of investigators who know clearly what their role is and have the expertise and the resourcing to actually target organised crime activity. The problem we have with our association laws here is that you don't actually have to be associating for the purpose of a crime to be charged with them.
Okay, so focus more on the organised crime aspect of it might be a better way to go. Let's bring our panel in. Terry, we've got a panel here. Shall we start with Anton first? Anton, your thoughts, your views, your comments on this?
Yeah, kia ora, Terry. It's great to be able to look over the Tasman and hear your experiences, and hopefully we can take some learnings from that. There's no point in trying to reinvent the wheel. We should look at what you're doing and look at what's working. And it sounds like, just listening to you, that these what's being proposed here probably isn't the answer. And you think, not better policing, that's the wrong word, but more targeted policing and resourcing those police officers, and targeting, being proactive and preventing crime from occurring in the first place rather than reacting is probably a better solution. Is that basically what you're saying?
Well, that's right. I mean, the police should be in a position through intelligence sources, etc., to say, why are these shootings occurring? I mean, we know these gangs, operate around issues of power, respect, territory, control of criminal markets. They should have a very good sense of what is causing the friction, why is this occurring, is there a takeover in regards to a particular territory or criminal enterprise that is happening, etc., and then target that criminal enterprise and those who are conducting it. I mean, that's one way you attack this. The other way I've kind of referred to, where you just take this generic approach of we'll pull over every outlaw motorcycle member we come across and try to annoy them. I think that's a really shotgun approach. It's not overly effective, and there's really no punitive outcome at the end of it for a lot of money and a lot of wasted time.
All right, Heather.
Yeah, I think that Terry made a very good point about we've got laws already that don't appear to be being used, and it's very easy for politicians to get stuck on sound bites and try and put more in place when actually perfectly adequate laws are there. They're just not being utilised to their full effect. And Terry, I don't know if you know Jared Gilbert, but I'm sure you probably have heard of him from the University of Canterbury. He suggested today that the short-term solution is to identify, for the police to identify the groups involved and blanket police them on minor offences and reinvestigate old matters, so that you're cracking down on them, so they begin to self-police themselves and say, look, this pressure's too much. We've got to stop this activity, this behaviour ourselves. Is that a reasonable approach in your view?
Yeah, look, I've met Jared and talked to him, and I know in fact, I was quoting his work there in regards to those laws. So he's very knowledgeable. He is right. I mean, and this is what I'm saying when, you need to sort out what is your strategic goals and how you're going to do it operationally. For instance, in Queensland, when we had our bikie blitz down here in 2013, we had an investigative component, we had a uniform component. The uniform component was to do exactly what you just described, minor offences, bail checks, probation and parole, work with them. The investigative component primarily initially was to look at more long-term investigations, and these organised crime investigations are long-term ones, like it'll be up to a year or more, and start proactively rolling those through. What we've seen to have done in Queensland, though, is fallen back into the uniform component has been removed, basically, and we now rely on the investigative component looks at minor offences such as consorting laws, which has a maximum of 3 years imprisonment, and we've only charged about 9 people with that offence in the last 5 years.
Terry, we're going to get you on again, mate. It's been really interesting talking with you. We could talk to you for another 10 minutes, but for now, thank you for your time. That is Dr. Terry Goldsworthy, Associate Professor in Criminology at Bond University in Australia, just giving us a bit of an inkling about